So, as I said earlier, this morning we continue our series, The Human. And to bring us up to today, we've looked at humanity. This is what we're offering as a Christian vision of what it means to be a human being, to be humanity. And we looked, first of all, at sort of epistemology. How do we know stuff? And we know stuff not only by our own experience, but also the experience and the testimony of others, whether those others are scientists, or whether those others are neighbors, or whether those others are historic voices from the past. And we talked about how the Bible is the testimony of the witnesses of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel and was revealed to us in Jesus Christ. And so we're taking that testimony into account as we try to look at a Christian vision of what it means to be a human being or to be humanity. And we looked at different aspects. We looked at the fact that we are created, right? That there is a purpose for us. We're not just accidental. We looked at the fact that we are iconic, that we are the image of God in creation, right? And there's something of God that is visible, that is meant to be visible, that is meant to be knowable, that is meant to be understood through us. And we've looked at how that icon, that image of God in humanity, is, among other things, embodied. And so last week was Mother's Day, and we talked about female embodiment and how female embodiment shows us something of who God is and what God is like. And today we're going to be talking about male embodiment and how male embodiment is an icon of who God is and what God is like. Now, you might be saying, Peter, good gracious, you talk about words like epistemology and iconic and female and male embodiment, and you wove through this minefield of Mothering Sunday last week, and now you're doing male embodiment. Why do you punish yourself and us in that way? Why don't you just Peter, really just remind us that God loves us and that everything is going to be okay and bring us to the Lord's table, please? And dude, I get that. Actually, I really do. I understand that. But actually, life is more than just knowing God loves us and everything will be okay. Because we have bigger questions. Who am I? What am I? What's right? What's wrong? How do we live as a community? How do I live as a person? These are big questions. And they're big questions that we're sort of battered with answers from all over the place. And so sometimes we need to be able to kind of sift out all of the shouting through the news and through social media and through blogs and through anger and through hysteria and through sadness and through rejoicing, all of these different shouts. And sometimes we need to say, God, what do you say? What do I need to hear from you? Sometimes we just need to calibrate a bit of true north for ourselves amid all of the clamor that we live around. And clamor there has been, especially this week. Who or what is a man? Who or what is a male? Are men and are males simply a herd of unknown predators? Is that who we are? Is that what we are? Not all of us, but we don't know which ones. Does that define us? Maybe, maybe not. Let's look at the scriptures. Let's look at some different ideas, and I'm going to present a Christian vision, what I think is a Christian vision of male embodiment as the image of God in creation, which again is another minefield. To stand up and suggest that males or men are uniquely something that females and women are not or cannot be, that's a tough thing to say. That's a tough thing to suggest. I mean, we're quite comfortable with recognizing the ways that females and womanness is unique, but to say that men are something unique, sometimes we kind of balk at that. But actually, I'm going to put that forward. I'm going to put that forward, that there's something about male embodiment that is unique and is distinctly different from female embodiment, which is also meaningful and unique and valuable. And to cut to the chase, the thing I want to put forward that is unique about male embodiment, that something about God is known in male embodiment, is, in a word, strength. in a word, strength. Now, immediately we go, Peter, are you saying that women aren't strong? No, I'm not saying women aren't strong. What I am saying is that male embodiment has a particular strength. And we see this. We see this actually quite painfully in a couple of different areas, and quite controversially in a couple of different areas. We see that in, what do we do with trans women competing against biological women in sport? That's a difficult thing. What about female bodybuilding and things like that, and the need to take testosterone at a significant level in order to achieve the sort of bodybuilding results that they're looking for to compete with? Those are some real realities, because male biochemistry and male physiology, male embodiment, is towards strength. And actually, that being embodied towards strength is something that, for men, is quite tricky. What do you do if you don't feel particularly strong? And just like a woman might look at all of these filtered images of other women on social media, on Instagram or on Pinterest or on adverts or blogs or whatever else, or they might look at a particular sort of kind of feminine body out in their community, or that gets showcased in movies or other things like that. Men do the same thing. But we do it in our own way. We look at rugby lads, and we look at footballers, and we look at Marvel characters, and we kind of go, actually, my body doesn't look like that. Like, we look at Bruce Lee, who's like, bah! And like knocks somebody 10 feet into, wherever, and go, my body doesn't do that. I'm not yoked. I don't have boulder shoulders. I don't have like washboard abs. And you know what? Actually, just like women lament hearing men catcall and whistle and make comments, actually, every guy has sat around and heard women sit back and discuss male form as well. We've seen it portrayed in media. We've seen it, we've heard it in popular music. And we've witnessed it in our workplaces and in pubs and other places where women discuss male anatomy. We have actually quite a shared experience in that. Indeed, and rightly so, it's been brought up this week that every woman we know has walked home scared, has faked being on the phone, has loitered by a window shop, has taken a long way around. And can I just say, we share that experience? Every man you know has walked into a pub and done an instant SWOT analysis. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities here? And what are the threats? Every guy you know has said, actually, let's go sit over here. And he hasn't told you why. But just because he hasn't told you why, or hasn't told you that it happened, doesn't mean it didn't. And if we've learned anything in sort of hashtag Me Too, is that just because someone didn't lift their voice at the time doesn't mean that the thing didn't happen. I used to do janitorial work. I'll tell you what, man, on the regular, I'd be taking out rubbish sacks, open the door, and I have to walk to the dumpster and think, I've got no idea what's on the other side of this door at 12:30 at night. I've got no idea. Every guy you know has left work late, has left the pub, has seen somebody walking down the road and gone, I'm not sure what's going to happen just now. We live in a world full of threat. That's a shared experience. Guys, we don't like to talk about that because we feel that strength is a part of our embodiment. And to admit that, to confess that, to acknowledge that, or to speak about that feels like appropriating weakness to ourselves. And so we keep that to ourselves. Yet further, 97% of women have experienced some kind of harassment. And far too many women have experienced some level of physical violence from men. And yeah, the whole box of Maltesers might be Maltesers, and one of them is milk chocolate coated turd, and you just don't know which one it is, so you might avoid the whole box. Here's another thing. Every guy you know has experienced emotional or psychological manipulation, mistreatment, or abuse from a woman. And just like many females' experience of abuse, it's at home or at school or from peers. And that formulates how she perceives this pack of unknown men. Guys do the same thing. We've experienced from our youngest years emotional manipulation, emotional abuse, psychological manipulation, and we haven't understood what's going on. And you can sit back and you say, well, men, if you were a little bit more emotionally developed, then it wouldn't feel like manipulation or abuse. Hold on. Well, women, if you were a little bit more physically developed, then you'd be able to stand up for yourself in the face of that physical assault. That's not cool. That's not how we roll. That's not right. We're not going to blame the weakness of the victim. And so men, because strength is a part of our embodiment, it's a part of how we conceive ourselves, it's a part of how we communicate ourselves in a place, anything that is weakness feels like an undercutting of who we are. It feels like an undercutting of how we communicate God in the world, and it doesn't sit well with us, so we keep it quiet. Just because we haven't said anything doesn't mean it hasn't happened. And so what we do is we can sit back and we settle into one of the most basic ways in which men exhibit, feel, and embody their strength sexually. And not everything is about reproductivity, please don't misunderstand. But reproductivity is a part of our embodiment as male and female, created in the image of God and being told, go be fruitful and multiply. And so this wisdom to a prince from the king who received it from his mom, right? In Proverbs 31, don't spend your strength on women. And that's not saying like women full stop categorically. It's the saying like, don't be a player. Don't hoard for yourself masses of sexual conquests. Spend your vigor on those who ruin kings. Actually, that statement has sort of sexual connotations to it. And there's a reason that that little blue pill makes so much money. Because for men, that's one area that sort of feels like it can't be taken away from us until it is. And men quietly grieve impotence or infertility the same way a woman grieves infertility. But guys tend to do that quite quietly, because our embodiment is towards strength. The other thing we do is strength. And this is where the image of God in male embodiment gets twisted, and it's what we've seen and it's what we're grieving this week. Male strength gets used for self-promotion, self-gratification, selfish ends. We, in our fallenness and in the beauty of our strength, but the brokenness of ourselves in the world we live in, is we use that strength to perpetrate violence rather than vivification. Ooh, 2 V words, isn't that great? That was clever, right there, that just happened. But we use our strength to beat down others. We use the strength of our reproductivity and our reproductive organs to perpetrate violence against others, to exhibit dominance, and to build up in ourselves our own sense of our own strength. And in so doing, we create an idol out of ourselves. But that's not the strength that gets communicated here in these texts that we've read. No. Actually, male strength is to be put forward for life-giving. Getting back to that reproductivity thing, male strength is for gifting. It's for giving. It's not for insisting or imposing. It's for giving and generosity towards the purpose of life. Men, don't use your strength to see how many pints you can put back and still walk home, sort of. Don't use your strength to amass for yourself sexual conquests. Don't use your strength simply to prop up your own sense of your own identity and your own achievements. Give your strength generously, lovingly, and vulnerably in a way that promotes life and builds it up. So yeah, boys, look after each other. Look after women. But don't just look after women. Just look after each other. Look after your neighbor. Jesus doesn't give some sort of gender qualifier around who we need to love as ourselves. He just says, love your neighbor as yourself. The first and greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. And the second one is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself, with no priority aside from the person in need that you come across. Because here's what we don't want. What we don't want is for all of us to walk around our streets, sit in our homes, and walk through our shops feeling paranoid and scared. Somebody just told me, a guy told me, a guy my age, he was walking through town and he was just taking the quickest way back to his house, and he realized he was behind a pack of schoolgirls, secondary school age girls. And noticed this week that they were kind of, doing this, kind of looking back. And immediately, in his mind, he's like, oh, crap. Like, do they feel threatened by me? Do they think I'm some sort of skis bag? Oh, man, I better give them I'm going to speed up. I'm going to give them a really wide berth. And I need to think of all of the reasons why I'm walking this way right now, even though I walk this way all the time just because it's the way between point A and point B. That's messed up. Equally messed up is that a group of schoolgirls would be thinking, oh, I better look over my shoulder, when a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, they wouldn't have. That's messed up. You know what's messed up? Adolescent boys walking through school and being told through Post-it notes everywhere that the implication is that they could be a violent perpetrator. They might not clock that today, but that leaves a mark, I can tell you, because I've been an adolescent young man. And adolescent young women are being raised to be fearful, be fearful. That's not okay. Should we be alert and should we be aware? Absolutely. We live in a beautiful but broken world where people do ugly, horrible things. We don't overcome that by villainizing each other. We overcome that by coming together, by knowing each other, by sharing our common experiences, to know that male or female, it doesn't matter. We've all walked home scared. We've all wondered if that person is going to be the one who will hurt me again. We need each other. God created humanity male and female. We need each other. There is goodness in each of us. There is something of God revealed in both of us, and there's something even more beautiful when that comes together in love. And ultimately, what we're saying about, or what I'm putting forward to you as male strength towards life-giving, communicates something of God. We believe in God the Father Almighty, who out of his great strength has created life. Men, out of your strength, give life. Promote life. Don't be embarrassed of your strength. Don't sit back and go, oh, but I'm only weak. No. In Christ, you have everything you need by his Spirit living in you. Women, can I just ask? Don't despise male strength. Don't vilify male strength. I know it's hard because perhaps that male strength has victimized you. Affirm it. When you educate your sons, affirm their strength. Like Lemuel's mom, who gave wisdom, teach them how to positively use their strength for the promotion of life, not just for women, but for everybody. Because we're in it together, dang it. Guys, to be honest about where you've been emotionally harmed is not weak. To be honest about the times you've noticed threat and you've been scared is not weak. I told you about taking out trash when I'm a janitor. I spent most of my adolescence feeling very, very weak. Scrawny chicken neck and legs lower than my knees that KFC would reject because they're not meaty enough. I would always wear 2 undershirts so that it would appear that the crew neck, that my neck would meet all of the seam, all of the hem. Because the way most t-shirts sat on me, I felt like made me look like a scrawny little wuss. All of my shorts had to come at least to my knee, so you wouldn't see how bulbous my knee was and how scrawny my calf is. I wasn't yoked like a Marvel character. I didn't have boulder shoulders like an NBA player. I didn't have like quads the size of like a ham hock, like a Premier League footballer. I couldn't punch like Mike Tyson. Just let's be honest about that stuff. Let's just be honest about it. Let's exhibit that kind of strength of vulnerability, and perhaps perhaps in that, we will open up a broader conversation between men and women about what we need from each other. Let's be honest about the emotional manipulations that we've experienced. From our moms, our sisters, from our first girlfriend, from that other girl in year 4 who kept on making fun of me and, but actually she liked me. Boys do that too, by the way. That's not a... Let's just be honest about that so that we can heal and those injuries don't compromise the strength that we know we want to live into and we want to bless our community with. And in that, God is seen. Let's just take some time in musical worship now. Let's sing, let's be sung to, and let's just see what God has to say to each of our hearts and minds from this morning.